This is the 2017 Subaru Impreza. This car is important not just because it's the 5th generation in a long line of all-wheel drive cars and hatchbacks that Subaru's been making since 1993, but this car also represents essentially what to expect from Subaru for the next several years. This is built on what Subaru calls the Subaru Global Platform, meaning that essentially all future Subarus will be built off of technology that is in this 2017. They're ditching the idea of let's build Imprezas and Legacies and then build things off of those two chassis and two platforms, and let's make one that we can work with in the future that will be safe and be responsive, but also be able to be changed to all the different sizes of Subarus. Imprezas, Crosstreks, Foresters, Legacies, Outbacks, WRXs, STIs, BRZs, and whatever they're going to call the 7-passenger vehicle when that comes out. Most of the reviews that I do are kind of facing towards me, so you can, I don't know, see my face as I drone on about the car. But I have it facing forward, not just so you can see this nice new stylish dash with this cool touchscreen and Apple CarPlay and Android Auto and all that on here, but the driving dynamics of this car have really stood out to me as kind of one of the high points of this car, because with this being the new global platform, if this is how well this car drives in its just a regular Impreza form, I can't wait to see what else this has in store for Subaru for their other cars. But that being said, they've gotten much more aggressive with the exterior styling. Oh, it looks like an Evo. Oh, it looks like a Mazda 3. Okay, that's fine. There's a lot of cars that look like a lot of cars these days. But I don't necessarily think, regardless of which ones you think this looks like, that that's a bad thing, because those are good-looking cars too. The Impreza certainly has more aggressive lines. You don't have these plain flat doors anymore on the sides. There's swooping, curving body lines that look really good on this car, whether you're in the hatchback or the sedan form. But then also the interior, not just the design of it. It managed to give you kind of a wraparound feel without that wraparound kind of claustrophobic effect to it. And a lot of Subarus have been kind of boxy in their design that gives it this nice open feeling, but then it just doesn't look very impressive. So they've managed to kind of meld those two design elements to give you a car that looks stylish, but is still functional. I've got, you know, this dash isn't hanging over my knees. I've got great room in here, and also great outward visibility, even out the back, which is something that's getting lost on new cars, it seems like, these days. The new infotainment system. This one's a Sport, so it has the gauges up top that I can change with this info button here. It also has a nicer dash outlay here and an 8-inch touchscreen that feels very kind of tablet-esque, with some great apps and such that are a lot of fun to play with and very user-friendly to use too. That's another thing. As cars get more complicated, they still need to be easy and intuitive to use, and Subaru's doing a good job so far with that. Now, the reason I'm on a back road with this hatchback is because this is where I take my 2016 STI to go have some fun on the weekends, or hang out with enthusiasts and carve through some B roads. And because this car handles so well, I wanted to see how it felt on these fun back roads. Now, the Impreza certainly looks good inside and out, but to me, as an enthusiast, and especially as somebody that owns a sportier version of this car, or at least on paper a sportier version, I'm very interested to see how this thing feels through all these fun sweeping turns and crests, and like I was hoping. Now, there's a couple things that work here. First, this is a Sport, so it has what's called Stablix suspension, which is essentially a Subaru in-house sportier suspension than the regular stock stuff. Don't really know the details on it, but they went through the trouble of calling it Stablix, S-T-A-B-L-E-X. It feels great, and I've driven a regular Impreza as well, and driven it quite harshly, and those feel good too. This feels a little bit more pointed, which I like. But then this also has a 13-to-1 steering rack, which is the same that's in my 2016 WRX STI. And I gotta say, the steering, I'm getting a lot of good feedback through this rack, which is interesting because it's electronically assisted. A lot of times that ends up being kind of a numb steering feel, but I can still feel what the tires are doing. But it's also very direct without being super harsh. The STI steering rack, especially at low speeds, can feel like you're driving a bit of a bus, and this doesn't. This is very predictable, very easy, very enjoyable. Coming down this nice big hill here. Dab of power coming through. Should I cross over the line? I probably shouldn't. And it stays flat anyways. No drama. Just a lot of fun. The new chassis on this car. As an enthusiast, if this is where Subaru is headed, just on a regular Impreza, I can't wait to see what they do with their sports cars, because this feels like a, dare I say it, like a less harsh version of my STI that's back at home in the garage. With not a blown engine, by the way. It's doing just fine. Even a little bit off camera turn here. Very composed and easy. Not too much. Sometimes on these Imprezas, you get some noticeable understeer when you start pushing hard, and I didn't really get a whole lot back there. Now this has got a new 2-liter direct injected boxer engine. I wouldn't say the engine itself is new, but the direct injection is new. I can't say there's a ton of difference in the power between, say, a 2012, and I owned a 2012. I used to drive it through here like I do my STI. The power doesn't feel too much different. The transmission feels like it's a little more lively. And this is still using a continuously variable transmission. Fun fact, and I'm proud to debunk this because a lot of journalists were getting it wrong before. The summer when they were releasing information about the 2017 Imprezas, there was no mention of a 5-speed, and so everybody just assumed, oh, the 5-speed's gone the way of the dodo, Subaru's only making automatics. You can still get a 5-speed in this, they just haven't come out yet. The 5-speed manual transmission in the 2017 Impreza will be available kind of early 2017 while they crank out these automatic versions first. But I'm excited to see how that feels too. But this CVT does feel different than the previous version before. I'm sure it's a programming thing. But regardless, it does feel a little more responsive. Although I don't feel the extra horsepower under the hood, the extra responsiveness from the transmission is a welcome change. The handling on this is fantastic. Just a little bit of power coming through these just makes it fun. And that's one thing that I enjoyed. The 2012 Subaru Impreza that I had before was my first Subaru, and that's kind of what got me hooked on these cars and made me want to do what I do now. And so to feel the next generation just delivering so well on all marks is really encouraging to see. I've also got a 1999 Subaru Impreza 2.5 RS, and while that car is a ton of fun, it is incredibly plain. And so to see 1993 to now, there's been a huge change, and you see that in every car. But it is nice to still feel those fun to drive aspects from 20 plus years ago and those older Imprezas that started this lineup out, and still feel those in the new car today. A lot of guys are like, oh no, they don't make them like they used to. Oh yeah, there's more computers on stuff. Yeah, you got more gizmos. Yeah, this and that and the other, and more complicated. Everything's more complicated. That's just the way the industry is moving. But gosh, this is a blast to drive. A little more straight line speed would be nice, but that's because I'm spoiled from my STI. Or just, you know, I think sometimes when you hear auto journalists racking on economy cars for it not having enough power, it's because they just got out of their Lamborghini Murcielago before that review. Okay, maybe not quite that extreme, but you get what I'm saying. Transmission's doing some little simulated shifting things here that make it seem a little bit less odd to drive. And CVTs technically shouldn't work that way. If anything, that might be hurting fuel economy, the way that it's shifting. But it's still delivering 38 miles per gallon on the highway with the new EPA kind of stricter regulations on that. The original EPA stuff, this car was probably going to be rated for about 40 miles per gallon on the highway, which is insane considering this is a full-time all-wheel drive system. Yes, it's mostly in the front, but you still have power going to all four wheels at any given time. So that's impressive, that you get an all-wheel drive car for $20,000 and it's not murdering you at the gas pump. And even though your base model won't have as big of a screen or as fancy of a display up there, it's still really encouraging to drive something this fun. Now the Sport specifically has red stitching going through, some nicer amenities here for your infotainment. You got some simulated carbon fiber going around this wraparound-esque dash. And then you've got 18-inch wheels on these, that suspension I mentioned, and the 5-speed versions of the Sport also come with a STI short throw shifter for those. So that would be even more fun to drive, I think. Still fun with a CVT. Usually fun and CVT aren't in the same sentence, but this car, I'm not so worried about the transmission, just in the way that this car handles and how sharp it is. It's been a lot of fun to drive through that back road. I'm really impressed with what they've managed to do with the new Impreza. I'm excited to see where the company goes forward from here with it. And dare I say it, a car like this, especially for guys that are butthurt about, enthusiasts I should say, not just people in general, enthusiasts butthurt that the WRX hatchback is no more. Pick up a 5-speed Impreza hatchback, a 2017, or whenever you're seeing this review, if it's newer than 2017. You'll have fun, at least in the turns with it. It may not deliver that same straight line speed that you expect from your older WRX hatchbacks, but gosh, this car just handles great. It's responding the way that I want it to, and that's really rewarding to feel in an entry-level car. So go check out a 2017 Impreza if you're looking at anything in this bracket, or go check out a 2017 Impreza if you're an enthusiast then too. I'm very happy with it so far, and they're gonna have to pry my hands off the steering wheel with this one. This has just been a blast to drive so far. Thanks for watching.